Hello, everybody, and welcome to Katrina Rasbold and Friends. And I've been so excited you've been able to join me to meet so many of my wonderful friends because, as I've always said, I know the coolest people. And I want you to know them too, because these are people who have influenced my life in a meaningful way and are important to me and are just interesting to talk to and interesting to get to know. And that's why I want you to get to know them well. And I was just explaining in our pre-show to my guest today that one of the reasons I do this is because when we engage people now, we just can become very discouraged by how little we have in common with people and how hard it is to connect with people and how stupid some people are. And so I'm just showing you that there are really cool people left in the world. They're out there. If I know this many cool people, and believe me, there's a huge list of interviews coming up, then that's a cross section. That's a sampling. I have not hoarded all the cool people. I promise. There's more out there. And this is just encouraging connection and encouraging you to feel like there's a reason to be here and to connect with people on whatever level you're comfortable doing. We don't have to isolate and wish that there were cool people out there. They're here. Life goes around one time, as far as we know for absolutely certain. And we can really accentuate our lives and really fulfill our lives in a big way when we can connect with people on the terms that we're comfortable doing. So that's why I do this. I've had a few people ask what the overarching purpose of the channel is, and that's what it is. And today I'm excited to be joined by a longtime friend of mine, Nicole Parker Adams. Is that what we're still using?
Yeah, I mean, I use that. That's my legal name. I use Parker professionally because I got my degree under that, and it's a real bother to have to change everything over. So
yeah. That's what's on the wall, right?
Yeah, Parker's on the wall, and Parker Adams is on my license.
So that's the writing on the wall. Got it. Okay. So I'm going to let Nicole tell you who she is and what she does. So go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, okay. Hi. Yay. So I am Katrina's friend. And that is actually part of how I identify, because it's really important to me. My friendships I demand a lot of depth from my friendships. And so I think of my friendships as part of how I define myself in this world. And then I'm a licensed marriage and family.
Friendship is performative for you?
No, no. See how that just evolved so quickly?
I thought that was adorable.
No. It's so funny. No, it's like by who stays in my world. I believe that deep, intimate relationships give us a reflection about ourselves that can only occur in relationships where we have genuine vulnerability and connection. And so the ones that fall off or don't maintain are also very informative for me about myself. And I think of it in that way. And so that's how I look at it. And it's energy, right? It's an energy exchange. And so if people are evolving with me and are receptive of reflection, I offer to them. And then they are also bold and courageous and in reflection with me, not afraid and shying away, then that shows that there's an authentic connection and reciprocation there. So to me, that's really, really important.
I agree. And Nicole G, you almost talk like a therapist, and I believe you were about to say something when I interrupted you.
That's okay. Yeah, so I'm a therapist by trade, and yeah, and I'm just doing a lot of therapy work. It can be really exhausting sometimes to sit with suffering or indecision or someone's inability to see themselves clearly or difficulty in seeing that. So, but that's what I do, and I that's what I do for a living, and I just love to be out in the garden. Other than that, I think I would probably identify as a home farmer. Last night my entire meal except for the chicken that I deep cooked was out of the garden. So that's important to me, and that's where I get solace is from being in the yard and in the garden. So with my critters. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So for those of you who follow our interviews and have watched the ones that I've already previously posted, one of my guests, Deborah D'Angelo, chose Nicole as one of the people who was especially influential in her life. So everybody who watched Deborah's interview, this is Nicole.
Oh my goodness. And I haven't had a chance to watch all the interviews yet because I really haven't been doing much online for quite a bit. I've just all of a sudden got more busy than I wanted to be. So I'm going to have to go check that one out.
You will. You really need to. And so, also in full disclosure, during the times when I feel that I need a therapist, Nicole is one of the people whose door I bang on.
Yeah, yeah. It's good when you have people who know you, right? And can cut through the chaff and not belabor stuff they know isn't true.
So one of the things that is specific, there are two things very specific about Nicole in her career that is important to point out before we go into another part of talking about where we met and all that, is number one, Nicole is a pagan practitioner.
Yes.
And so, as Deborah pointed out, you don't have to explain to her, look, I'm going to do a tarot reading to try to get some insight on this. You don't have to explain, I don't know why I don't like my mother-in-law. It's just an energy that's there. And she'll get that.
Yeah.
Not having to jump that fence is huge. To be able to talk to an energy worker who's a serious practitioner.
Yeah.
Who also is a therapist. It's an amazing gift. You don't have to explain so much.
It's such a relief to be with people in that practice as well, because it so aligns with how I do therapy normally. And so when I with pagans and people who follow that line, the work is more expansive because you can dip into spaces that connect that deeper understanding we have of ourselves and in the universe, and the way you can use language has so much more expansive meaning than some of the less interesting kind of things where you just have to stay in sort of this narrow lane. So
truth. And it's also nice to walk into an office that has been smudged out with herb and sprayed with inner sanctum spray.
Yes, indeed. Right.
Yeah, a giant ball of obsidian to suck up.
I don't know how many times, depending on the situation, I've either picked up a ball of obsidian and put it into a client's hands and said, hold this while we talk, or a ball of jet, which is strangely light, and put it into their hands. One time I had a string of obsidian beads, and I just put it around their neck and I said, now just keep on talking. And it's really interesting how that kind of stuff will affect people and help them be grounded or more present or shift their awareness, bring it back into their body where we need to be, because it's your only house you get is the one you're living in right now.
And that's the truth. And the second thing about Nicole that's very specific is that she is, I would say, one of, if not the most qualified and effective grief counselors that I've ever met. And you approach grief in a very different way than your field teaches you to do. And you, in fact, have been very critical of therapy and psychology regarding their approach to grief.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get into that on one of the questions, I think.
Good deal.
I was thinking about. So, yeah.
So before we jump into those questions, you and I met, in fact, at a Pagan Pride Harvest Festival.
Now, 2008, right?
That sounds right. Yes.
Because that's when we first had moved up, and Nikki and I were looking for connection. And this was a festival we found because we had just gotten to Stockton in March of 2008. And I think it was October? When was
September?
September.
Yeah, they were always in September.
I missed the month. I skipped right over the month.
Yeah, it's always in September at the autumn equinox.
Yeah.
Except this was the first year that they booted it out until October, but that started in 1999, and for all the rest of the time, it was always the weekend of autumn equinox.
Yeah, that was a really neat. You were giving a class on the magical household.
Yes, that's right. Protecting your home.
It was really, really neat. And it was so important too, because we had just moved into a new home, and I planted all of this rosemary, all protective hedge around because we're at a T at the house. And so the energy, it's been very good. It was a really neat. It was neat to take things you were teaching and put them into application in the immediate moment. It was kind of nice.
I'm glad somebody did that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So after that Pagan Pride, when I met you and Nikki, we just clicked,
Yeah.
and you were, working coven with us not long after that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're up there in Grizzly Flats, and that was such a neat experience to actually have that. It was a good group, and there were a lot of young people, I think,
Yeah,
at that time.
definitely. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So that's how long I've known Nicole.
Yeah.
And we've both had some pretty serious crises that have occurred since
Mhm.
then. We've lost friends that were extremely dear to us that passed.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we've walked a long road together.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think happened? Now, you're uniquely qualified to answer this. What do
It's like
you
so
think happens to you when you die?
I have thought a lot about this kind of a thing in my own life. Just obviously, I've had quite a lot of death. And, when Nikki died, my dad died, my aunt died, and then Jennifer died. And that was all in a 2.5 year period. And so it was like, boom. And I thought about death before that. But when you die, I have this belief in my mind that we just don't know how to measure a lot of these things yet. And so I believe that our energy that we currently have in our body that creates our animation, our soul, has like a specific energy signature to it. And when we interact with others, that our energy signatures mingle and mark one another, as it were, with some form of energy. And so when I die, my expectation is that my energy is released from this body and that it is available and out in the universe. And we don't know yet how it happens, but the energy will then be brought into many other things. And so I don't view it as reincarnation per se, but I view that whatever markers were unique to my existence energetically on the planet will be absorbed into someone else. So like have always had this really strange innate connection to blues music and sadness sometimes. And I think, where's that come from? Because it's not like I had some horrific childhood where, the stories I've heard from my clients over the years, I have nothing to match that, right? So I think, well, this helps me understand that. What if I'm holding energy, right? If I have an energy that's been marked by some other people and their experiences, and that gives me this felt sense of a connection in that way. So that's what I view happens when you die.
When you're talking about all the people that passed in that or died in that 2.5 years, people are so uncomfortable saying died. I say died.
They're dead.
They're dead. Amen.
He's
Oh,
expired. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know. How do we say
right
this,
on.
right?
But it's interesting how differently we relate to death when
Mm-hmm.
death stops being a concept to us and becomes
Yeah.
our life partner that we've got to
Yeah. Yeah.
walk with, no
Yeah.
matter what comes after that moment of that death of someone dear to us.
Exactly.
The death and the grief, it's not ever going to be away from us. It will always walk with us.
Well, that impermanence of our existence, that's the existential crises that most people don't pause and sit with because it can create so much anxiety. But I think that if you sit with understanding that something will move on, because it's not we're all electrical beings, your energy will go somewhere. So I kind of look at it in those terms. But you have an existential crisis and awareness of the impermanence of life. How are you going to engage your life differently, or even your curiosity about yourself differently? And what will you stop belaboring as a result of realizing that I had worked with this one kid in this group home, and I said, okay, take in a breath and exhale. You can't ever get that back. And he straight paused and he was like, oh my God. Right. And it's one of those moments of, oh, right. Because this isn't forever. Right. And I think
Right,
that's really
right.
important. And I wish we lived in a society that allowed us to contemplate that in a more real-time fashion, right? So that we could really enjoy the components and aspects of life that we have at our disposal, I think, more fully when we allow ourselves not to think that tomorrow is a given.
We're always so surprised when someone dies.
Right? And why? Why? Right?
Yeah.
I think that when I held Zavo as he died on the floor in my living room in Stockton in 2009, and he just I could feel him leave, and it was just his body there on the floor. And I just felt a part of me leave with him. And I slept on his dog bed that night on the floor in the living room. There's just something about that goneness that once you experience that goneness, right? I don't know. You can't see the world in the same way you used to. Even the plants and the trees and all the things, right? That being said, I was a little hypersensitive for a while there. I was like coming home from your house one ritual night, and all these little frogs were on the road, and it was like on the road, and I was so distressed the entire drive because I was the one driving, and I was like,
Get
oh my God,
the road, frogs!
Yes, and I was like, everybody in the car is like, come on, Nicole, drive, damn it! I'm like, but they're dying, and I was so upset. But that's the flip side to it, right? Is when we realize the impermanence of it and our connection to everything, because it's energy, right? Then it can feel like part of us dies with some of these things, and it can get overly sensitive around it. And that's where I have to kind of bring myself in on the containment and just accept, well, it's just how this plays out. And this is just, there's so many things over which I have no influence or control, and just come back into where I do have some influence, and I can choose to look at things a certain type of way. So
that works for me. So I'm going to tell you, and I should have brought this up in pre-show and I didn't. So we're just going to have to be all kinds of vulnerable here in front of the world. Okay. But I recently got something from Jennifer.
Did you?
Yes. So for you, those of you who are not Nicole would have little reason to know this, but I have a shrine in my bedroom.
Yep.
It's a small shrine. It's not huge. That's to a mutual friend of ours who was just precious.
She was the light. She was
too good and too fun to walk this earth, but I'm so glad she did. And she passed in 2020, not from COVID.
Nope.
But because it was rampant COVID, we couldn't be with her when she passed. And so what Nicole and I did is held vigil in my office at my store. And we did a cleansing for her and burned a figure candle for her as the moment she was passing. We felt her leave. We connected with her. She told us some things she wanted us to do. And
sorry.
Yeah, we'll keep that off. The shrine it's a little glass enclosure, and it's got a picture of Jennifer, and Athena was her patron goddess. So Athena's in there, and she loved Tinkerbell. So Tinkerbell's in there. We've got her sash that was presented to her when she initiated into our coven. And we also have the wax that was from that last moment with her. So that it's like that last moment is caught in that wax. So I've got her up on top of a dresser so that she's completely between the ceiling and the top of the dresser. So it's there. I tell her hello from time to time. If I find a fleur-de-lis in a thrift store, I put it up there because she loved those. I tell her hello. I tell her good night. We just connect here and there. And a lot of times I don't feel her there. A lot of times it's just, hi, Jen. Miss you, Jen. And so all of a sudden I started hearing knocking sounds from that area for about a week.
Wow.
And it sounded like the dresser was settling at first.
Right. Yeah.
And like, okay, well, I can, how we do, I can rationalize this away. And it was happening almost every night and sometimes in the morning. And it was just, and I would hear that and hear that and hear that. And so finally I woke up and was going to pee at something like 4 a.m. and I hear it. And I hadn't started to walk on the floor. I hadn't done anything but roll over. And so I stood up and I just said, what?
Right?
What is this? What? And she said, finally, you're here. I got to tell you, I'm coming back. And I was like, what? And she goes, and I'll find you. Don't worry. I'm going to find you.
Oh my goodness.
And I got goosebumps, I was like, okay, so I'm not going to be here in your little cage for much longer. and then, so I go to pee and I'm really, of course, thinking about all this, and I could just feel this in her voice in my head.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I came back and her area felt very empty. I haven't heard the knocks since then.
Mm-hmm.
And then this little baby was born
Oh
to
my
some
God,
of our
right?
friends. So I'm processing all of this,
Right.
like, "Where are you,
Yes.
Jen?" And I'm gonna be
Wow.
thumping this little baby in the head like, "Are you in there?"
Totally. That is so cool. Oh
So I
my
wanted
God,
to
how
share that with
wonderful.
you. So if Jen shows up
Absolutely.
for you or you
Yeah,
see something weird, pay attention. It's
mm,
probably Jen letting you
I
know because
will.
she was closer to you than she was to me. So
Well, and she was, for people who don't know, Jen was very short. She qualified as a little person.
oh my god, yeah. She was like 4'11" or something like that.
Yeah, 4'10", I think, and she talked about how hard that could be because people would, put their elbows on her head and treat her like a child when she was anything but, and people people can just be inconsiderate to other worldviews, right?
True
And the
story.
world. My brother was 6'5", right? So he saw the world very differently as
Yes, she
well,
did.
right? And so,
So we both have this. We could take this next question and expand it out into several interviews because you and I have been so blessed.
yeah.
And in life, especially as we go into a certain age, when
Hmm.
we look back, we can see how many
Hmm.
ways people influenced us through trauma, or they
Hmm.
influenced us by modeling behaviors that we don't want to emulate and that we actively work to not emulate.
Hmm.
Who in your life was especially influential to you in a positive way?
There, I think, are so many. Always the first thing that comes to my mind is my father. And the reason is because he was such a troubled and imperfect man who constantly strove to be less imperfect. And I remember for a period of time defining myself by how I did not want to emulate him, and that he wasn't offended by that when I said it to him. I said, I want to be better than you. I don't want to be like that. And that's what I said to him when I left for college. And just his influence was that he would regularly reflect to me like how he authentically saw me, and that allowed me to kind of be more in my space. But also he set a really unrealistic standard for other people in my life because my father and I had an attunement that was just flow state. So we could be doing a project or something together and we would not even have to speak. And so that really puts other people in my world at a disadvantage, right? Because I've had that. And so that's part of what I think is been a challenge for me just in life, because I can be very impatient and have this expectation, almost like a tantruming child sometimes, right? Of why can't you connect to me better? I've had this before. I know what it's supposed to feel like, this kind of thing, but it's unrealistic, right? But yeah, my father, he was fascinating, but also all the elders, like my aunt, and just the way that she engaged life emotionally, and she was fearless in how she never denied her emotional experience and her spiritual views on things in order to pander to other people. She was always there to take care of herself. Um, and then also with you, because like after Nikki died, there were so many ways in which you held the line and allowed me to not lose myself. And so I think that all these different connections of people who can see me authentically and not be afraid to reflect to me have been really influential. But yeah, there's a list, right? There's a whole list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really hard when we do understand the psychology of human engagement
Mm-hmm.
and we take the moment to be very vulnerable with somebody and authentic with
Mm-hmm.
somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And their response is, okay, well, I just got a tip on out now. Uh,
Yeah.
on one
Yeah.
hand, we're so proud of them for saying,
Mm-hmm.
this is a place I can't go. I
Right.
can't do this with you. We want them to hold the line. We want them to be sovereign in
Mm-hmm.
where their energy goes. But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of rejection is so profound.
Well, and it's a feeling of loss, right? It's this desire to feel a close connection. Doesn't mean I have to know everything about you. It just means that when you're with me, you're fully present and authentic and present with yourself, right? And I think that's something I don't want in what life, but it's something I need. And so I can tell that. And because I'm so acutely aware that my time is limited, I don't want to give my time and my energy to people who can't be in that space. And so it's very difficult sometimes when I'm around. I mean, small talk is fine, but even if with people I've only met and talked to, like Francesca's sister's brother's sister, she and I had this amazingly deep conversation. And it was like one conversation, and it was more intimate than conversations I've had with so many other people. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that is important, not time, but presence and depth. And so, yeah.
In the first
question, right? Yeah.
In the first Celestine Prophecy book,
Mm-hmm.
that was what I glommed onto, was that authentic connection with people. And how I don't want to say disposable, I guess that's a little bit too harsh, but how secondary those connections that are just anything else can really feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And it leaves me often feeling sad for people that can't go into that space, because that space is such an amazing, precious space. And it's really not that difficult to be in, per se. It just means that you have to accept where you're at. You have to accept that you're uncomfortable. You have to accept that you're proud of yourself, and not title it as a thing. Something isn't good or bad. It just is. And if we can approach everything in the world that way, then it opens us up to a whole different level of just connection and engagement with everything. I mean, from the bugs to my dogs to the trees to the wind. Like the wind is an entity. Remember when we were taking care of Nikki's ashes down in Grizzly Flats out there, and I laid down on the ground out in the woods, and I closed my eyes, and the wind came through. It arrived. I could hear it arriving, and it arrived, and it must have shaken needles loose, but the needles sounded legit, like broken glass falling to the ground. And it was amazing, right? And the wind brought that gift. The wind brought that, because I was shattered, right? And so there was so much presence and symbolism in that. But if I hadn't listened to, what I'm being called to lay on the ground, I just need to lay there and just be at peace, close my eyes, be present, I wouldn't have received that presence, that connection, that gift. And I think that's the kind of stuff we need to listen to ourselves and not edit. And so important to always strive for that.
I got to agree with that. That makes me think of leading into this next question. You have had, and I feel I've been fortunate enough to say this about myself as well, this huge breadth of experience.
Yeah.
Of meeting so many people, doing so many things, traveling to so many places. What, as you look back in your life, and all humility aside, and all sense of grandiose aside, what are you the most proud of in your life?
It's funny. There are a couple of things. There's always the most recent thing, which is like writing the article. That almost killed me in writing it, right? It was a real death of self in trying to delve into that space. But first, let me go back to, I always go back to this experience of when I was a kid in second grade. I'm a twin, and so we got treated very differently. But I remember there was this boy on the playground. He had Down syndrome, and he would get picked on. And I'm really proud of the fact that at that age, I proclaimed myself his personal bodyguard and defended him repeatedly and played on the playground with him because it just felt like such a terrible injustice, and people weren't acknowledging the beauty of this human being. And that was way back. And I think about that. That comes up in my mind still a lot, in this world. But that's a character trait, right? That the need for people not to be hateful, to just be, okay, it's not good or bad, it just is, connect where you're at, was so important to me even then, right? So it's a thread. But I'm really proud of having written the article, because it required me to, so I wrote an article about my experience after Nikki killed herself, right? And how just absent my field was. Healers didn't want to hold space for the suffering of another healer. And it was just everywhere. And it was really sad to me, because I thought, there's a lot here. I just need someone to just hold the line with me, stand in the space. And people didn't. And so I wrote this article challenging my profession to do better, because for me, up and until the time of Nikki's death, my profession has almost been like, well, it's a calling, right? It's not really a profession, it's a calling, but it also felt like a faith, right? So my way of doing my work actually is very much in alignment with my faith perspective. And so so the two line up beautifully. But after all this happened, I had what I called a crisis of faith, because this thing I thought I view in how I do it as being so holding the line and creating a safe space and all that was completely, the bottom fell out. It was completely absent. And so I feel like the way that I wrote the article, it's a clinical article, so it's not, I don't know if it'll be easy for the layperson to read per se. I mean, you read it, so I don't know, but but you're not really a layperson. Like, you have a lot of education and exposure and stuff. But I think it was done in a way that was like fearless and completely open and vulnerable, and that was what needed to happen in order for people to see it. And I got a lot of response from it. And so then to trail onto that, the thing that I feel good about is that I took that, and then I didn't want to, but I was calling everybody out. And so I started process groups for clinical survivors who are healers only, no lay people. And that's going on now. And I actually have 2 groups now, which is really sad and also good at the same time. And so despite not wanting to do that, I knew that it was in alignment with what I knew I needed to do. And so I'm proud of the fact that I pushed through on that. And I've created a space, it seems, for people that allows them what I did not have in the wake of Nikki's death.
So going into something much lighter, what movie or podcast or book or TV show are you into lately?
There's this one, I can't remember the name of it. It's on Apple TV, and it has, oh my God, what's his name? I can't remember. It's one on traveling and, Schitt's Creek, the father. What's his name?
Eugene Levy.
Okay, so Eugene Levy is in it, and he's traveling all over the place. And it has just been like having like, oh, I'll have a piece of my chocolate bar tonight kind of thing. It's just really nice. That's good. They're 30-minute episodes, and it's all the places that I have no interest in traveling anymore. I think I've traveled enough for my life, and any travel that comes beyond here is just going to be, extra. And so it's kind of fun to live through this experience and to see this. So he goes all to these different places, and he reminds me a little bit of my father in this capacity for introspection and for seeing the depth in other people, and wanting others to really dive into their own depth. And so I really enjoy that as well. So that's neat. And he's like 74 or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was that old, but he sure doesn't look it, but he is. And but I've been enjoying that a lot because it's a little bit like candy.
I love that. That's great.
We all need a little of that, right?
We do. We do. I think for me, people in their 70s used to feel so old.
Yeah, no.
Ancient, at death's door.
Yep.
For me, 70 is the new 40.
Right? The closer we get to it. But neither of my parents lived past 80. My mother was dead a month before her 61st birthday. And my father died, I think it was like 3 months or something before his 81st birthday. So yeah. So, but you can see a real shift for people when they hit 80. Like there's a fragility that just for the physical body occurs, right?
Sure.
But in the 70s, that's not always evident. It's almost like a weird switch flips when people hit 80. So,
but also, now my dad died when he was 51 and coronary artery disease. My mother died the year she was going to turn 61 in that September. And so I didn't get to experience my parents as elderly people. I got to experience my grandparents as elderly people, but that was very tangential. They weren't really up on me, so that I was around that a great deal. I took a lot of gerontology classes. I worked in old folks' homes. And what I've found now is that when you get past, say, 55,
Mm-hmm.
people stop saying, "Oh my God, they were so young."
Yeah.
They just sort of tilt their heads, and start doing the math, as subtracting their their age
Their own age
from
from
yours.
it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we're
it's
kind of
totally
at
true.
that place where they stop at least I am, that place where they
Yeah.
stop questioning, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, when did it happen?"
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Nobody's like, "Oh my God."
Yeah. It's a good point. It's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is there anything that you would like to promote? It can be about you or anybody else.
I don't know. I just want to, um, I feel like sometimes I just want to promote like compassion and seeing from things from other people's eyes, right? Which is why I want to write a book about what's gone on and use my journals, because I want people to see it from my eyes, right? And share my journal entries through what had happened after Nikki had passed. But to me, that's the biggest thing is I'm hoping to be able to write something that would be, speaking to people and calling to people and supporting them and doing that. But yeah, a call to compassion, that'd be super awesome.
Right.
Would I, I have to say, I've been watching this podcast, not podcast, The Guardian. There's this photojournalist, and he's been reporting in the Middle East for a long time. And he did this series called I think it's called The Green Line. Anyway, he goes along the Green Line in the West Bank in Jerusalem, and he's talking to people about the situation in Palestine, and to a number, the Israelis show very little compassion at all for the Palestinians, just even as other living beings. And I felt really sad because part of me really desperately wanted to hear them saying it's a tragedy what's happening, the deaths on October 7th and all this, but this has gone too far, where too many people are suffering. But that's not what he got. And it was really disconcerting to me, and it just like left me feeling like, where's the compassion? Where's the compassion for the child who has now no family and is wishing to be in heaven? And I feel like we really need to promote this concept of, we don't have to like a thing, but we have to acknowledge the compassion of who we are, right? And who others are, and not dehumanize or make it possible to belittle the value of another living thing, even animals around us.
So that kind of ties into the next question when you're talking about the book that you wanted to write.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you have left on your bucket list that you want to accomplish while you're here?
I do want to get that damn book written. That would be nice. Well, one of my bucket list things was to teach at a university. So I've got that one going on right now. I love to be outdoors. And so we're going to, there are bucket list items like cross country skiing I've never done. And I'd like to do that like somewhere where, I go somewhere and then camp, but we're going to do some snowshoeing for my birthday this year, a friend of mine. And that was on my bucket list. We're going to snowshoe up to a hot spring. And I thought, well, that's going to be kind of neat to do. So just things that keep me connected and out in the world are kind of on my bucket list. I don't need to go jumping out of a plane anywhere. That's never going to be on my bucket list. But, being in space with people, sharing space with people and connecting with people is anything that connects to that's going to always be on my bucket list. But, yeah, so that's my thought on that one.
I love that. What is your favorite part of the day?
It's late afternoon before sunset. I thought about that. I loved this question because when I was in college, and I think probably could reflect it back even farther, because when I ran track in high school, and I ran track since I was 7, but in high school, we'd be out on the field, right? And you're out on the field as towards the end of the day. And so there's this window of time. And I remember in college coming back from my last class and then laying on my bed for a little bit between 4 and 6. And the way that the light comes in the windows, the angle of the light, the gentle warmth of the air. And it seems like every breeze at that time of day is just a lovely, just embrace from the universe. And then just the other day, we were up on the roof of one of the sheds here, putting, some solar things up or whatever. And I was just like, I just laid down in the sun, and it was about 4:30. And there's just the most beautiful time of day. And I could see that the sun, we probably had another hour of sunlight, and the sun was just slowly trekking its way down across the ridge. And so that's my favorite time of day. I don't know why, but it has always been. And it has this felt sense to it that's just so peaceful and gentle.
I love That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be, or you might not be surprised, but how many people choose the morning?
Really?
Lots of people love the morning, so it's nice to hear someone say the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm still having a date with my eyelids in the morning, probably.
I love those transitional moments. And I don't just mean the liminal places where I'm going between sleep and wake, but at noon, we're transitioning into the night. And that gets fully reflected when we're at dusk. And so that feels really transitional. At midnight, we're transitioning to morning. And so that carries over until dawn. And I think about how that reflects our spiral of the year.
Exactly.
And the balance of that. And so those little in-between spaces where things are becoming something else are really sacred to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if you could choose someone, and this can be yourself or someone's, who would you like for us to send some love to today?
Who wouldn't I like us to send some love to?
We can keep it generic and just send it out there into the world if you want.
Yeah, I think it just really needs to be out there in the world. I have so many people that I interact with, like even in the class, we were talking about kind of race and gender in the last class. And this one young woman in there is like, I'm exhausted with fear for my family and friends who are immigrants. And it's like, oh my God, and then you exponentially to the rest of the world. It's like, it's just so much hate in the world that is not actually the primary thing I think that people come with, but it's always the bully in the room always occupies more space. And even when the bully is only one out of 25, right?
Yeah.
And so they're actually not the majority. And so I feel like everybody else needs to be sent some energy and some compassionate love, because that's what we need. Otherwise, this world's just like a vice, and it just crushes you.
So you're in a position where you engage groups of people regularly. When you're coming into a group new, are you able to accurately identify the group dynamics? Who's going to be the shrinking violet? Who's going to be the bully? Who's going to be the one that tries to commandeer the group?
Yeah, it's an automatic assessment. Unless I'm in a social setting, I try to not do that in a social setting, although I still automatically do some of that just for my own well-being. But yeah, I think it's people forget how obvious their dynamics are, and that they're unfiltered in a lot of ways. And so it's really not that difficult to pin down what's going on. So yeah, I can usually get that pretty accurate vibe. Sometimes the quiet ones will be surprising because they'll find their voice at the most unexpected point in time. But it's yeah, I think it's not too difficult to break up a group. But it's like doing this class, by the way, like one of the things, one of the videos we watched, someone said, yeah, you have a bunch of clients, but your client has exactly one therapist. And it was just such an interesting reminder. And then said, you will run into and meet more people in the course of your profession than most people will ever meet in their entire lifetime. And that was interesting, because it's through relational interaction that we build our own perception of ourselves and of the world and how we interact with it. And so that was a really powerful, it was a powerful awareness to kind of be reminded of.
For sure.
So, yeah.
So we just want to send love out there and compassion and empathy to everybody. We don't want to overload our little empath folks with too much empathy. So self-regulate, you guys, as we send you this energy. So let's just kind of shift in our chairs. Bruce, not now. Shift in our chairs a little bit and really get seated in our bodies. Deep breathing. And then feel earth beneath you, the firmament, keeping you strong and steady, giving you a place to stand, giving you safety, providing the abundance of your harvest, nourishing
Mhm.
you. And feel that move upwards into your body from below, while the sky above you pours down into you.
Mm.
The sacredness of the sun and the moon, the ephemeral, cyclical nature of the moon that promises that everything works in cycles and everything will leave and everything will come back. And then the life giving force of the sun that warms us,
Mm.
gives us life. Feel that move down and shake hands with that earth beneath, right about at your solar plexus. And then feel it move outward from there into the world as it blends with the love that you have,
Mm.
and send that connection out there and just bless everybody with that feeling and that force. Let it flow for a little bit. Let the flow continue from above, continue from below, channel outward through your solar plexus into the world. Moving, moving, moving. And then feel it start to slow down. And then feel that connection resume its normal flow as you empty out the rest of it, keeping a little bit of it for yourself. And
Mm.
another deep breath, making sure we're still here and present in our bodies. Nicole, do you have anything to add or anything you would like to put out there?
No, just that I hope that anybody who watches all of these interviews kind of sees how much people want to have this kind of connection, and that these connections can happen outside of a structured setting, and to be maybe enter into spaces with more openness and more willingness to be fully yourself or engage in curiosity. Like engage the world curiously and don't worry about it being good or bad. It just is, and just be in it. And then you can enjoy feeling that closeness and connection.
Come here.
Like Lucifer,
Chris.
it's
Chris.
super important for him to feel connected right now.
He's really wanting to connect. Come here, buddy. No, he ain't having it. I think he wants to connect with the outdoors right now.
That's so funny, right? So, but yeah, that's what I
So
would say is just be curious and about others, and just be present out there, and engage the world, fearlessly be out there.
it's so important to remember that the labels of good and bad
Mhm.
they belong to us
Yeah.
when it comes to it. They're all so individual.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes them ephemeral, because
Mm-hmm.
even what we consider good and bad will shift throughout our lives.
Precisely.
That's something else that's shifting. So, like you said, it is.
It
It
just is. And that way it might not have to be bad the entire time in your life. It would be this moment where it's like, oh, the felt sense of it is very different. And I'm curious what's allowing it to be different now than it was before. That's what we want to open ourselves to, because that just opens and expansively connects our spirit to those around us and to the universe, right? That we're a
It's an
part of.
interesting door of perception there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're driving along and the car behind you is driving really erratically like this, you can
Mm-hmm.
get really pissed off. What is with this guy? This guy must be drunk or something. What's going
Mm-hmm.
on here? And then you look up and recognize the car, and you see it's your friend looking out the
Mm-hmm.
windshield, going, being stupid. All of a sudden, there's warmth that's there instead of
Right.
anger. And you're like, you're
Exactly.
this idiot. And you pull over, you talk, you hug, you have a little meeting there, and you
Yeah.
drive away having forgotten the negativity that you just shoved out
Right.
into this. If
Right.
if somebody cuts you off in traffic and you have to slam on the brakes and you're absolutely furious about it. I use a lot of traffic
Mhm.
metaphors, but then you
Mhm.
see a laboring woman in the front going,
Right,
suddenly you might
exactly.
have a different perspective about being cut
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
And so you circle around and clear traffic for them.
yeah.
Perception is everything. And
It is.
acknowledging that we don't perceive all that there is that
Mhm,
defines a situation
mhm.
is so vital.
Absolutely. It allows us to be more present with what's there rather than creating a paradigm into which it must fit for us.
Gosh, we're so smart, Nicole.
It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with me today.
It is. Nicole, thank you for being here for this interview. I appreciate you saying yes so
Yes.
much.
Oh, well,
And I
thank
hope
you,
that you'll come
Katrina.
back again, because I have another 8 questions that
Yeah, that'd be fun. I would love to see where this could go. This could go next. So,
Me too. I'm really curious. I'm having a good time doing it, and
yeah.
I really hope that the people who watch these have a good time as well. So
Yeah.
if you are interested in the Eugene Levy show that Nicole
Yeah.
mentioned, or what she does in her practice, or anything about what we've talked about, all of that is going to be linked down in the description so that you'll be able to follow through if you want to go down the Nicole rabbit hole and check all of that out.
Right. Yeah.
And meanwhile, you know how to find me. I'll be here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and checking out my friends who I really, really enjoy. And believe me, I curate this list. I'm really careful about who I'm going to show off to you. And Nicole was definitely on the wish list. So thank you again, Nicole. Appreciate you being here. And we're going to say goodbye for now. So bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Katrina. Bye.